We just got some crazy leaks about Spider-Man 4 that gives us a ton of information about every new character that's going to be in the movie, including the main villain, Sadie Sinks character's role, possibly the Osborns being in the film, and more. We got to go over all of this. Now, I call it a leak, but it's really just some industry insider information from Daniel RPK. He is like the most reputable film leaker of all time, and he got his hands on the casting calls for Spider-Man 4. And in this casting call, it literally describes the exact type of actors they're looking for, like the gender, ethnicity, height even sometimes, and it goes over the general personality and backstory of some of these characters. So we don't have any official names, but we can really narrow it down with this information. So as I said, there are a ton of these, but let's start off with these two new characters because people are speculating that this is referring to the Osborns. I think there is one other possibility here though too. As you can see, they are casting two new roles in the movie for a male in his early 20s, described as a resourceful young man, people are saying is Harry Osborn, and a male 30s to 50s, any ethnicity described as a no-nonsense authority figure who sees the world in black and white, loyal, determined, and willing to cross lines to maintain order. Now, obviously, introducing the Osborns would make a lot of sense in this movie because Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin, is like one of the most famous Spider-Man villains of all time and a huge character in all of his stories, and Harry Osborn would be a perfect new friend to introduce now that nobody has any memories of Peter. The only thing that kind of throws us off is it says males 30s to 50s. If Harry Osborn is going to be in his 20s, why would his father be in his 30s? But, you know, it's Hollywood. They could just get someone that looks older in their 30s, like in Dune, for example. Timothy Chalamet is like 11 years younger than Rebecca Ferguson, yet he plays her son. Before I go over the other character I actually think this could be, if it is Norman Osborn, I truly wish they will bring in Coleman Domingo to be this character, because if you don't know, in Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, he does the voice of Norman Osborn, and I honestly think he is a perfect version of this character because he brings something that's so different, a completely different type of energy than Willem Dafoe's just pure insanity that he has in the role. I think this is genuinely an amazing casting for the animated show, and like the show is kind of like an alternate MCU universe anyways. I don't think anybody will complain that he's doing the live action and the voice in this. Another possibility though is I think that the guy that they're casting in their 30s to 50s, again, sees the world in black and white, no pun intended. I think it could actually be Mr. Negative, but more so really Martin Lee before he turns into Mr. Negative, because we know he's not going to be the main villain of the movie. But I think introducing him into this film would be perfect, and honestly the person in his 20s could still be a Harry Osborn, we just don't see Norman yet, or it could just be some other random friend that they create original for this movie. But honestly, if it's either Mr. Negative or Harry and Norman Osborn, I think it would be a genius idea to introduce them into this film, let them be characters in this trilogy before becoming their main famous villains that they become. They could do the Harry Venom storyline, since we know the symbiote is still lurking around in the MCU, and we're very likely to get symbiote Tom Holland in this movie or in Secret War somehow. The next bit of casting information we have is actually about the role that we know went to Sadie Sink. So pairing the actor with the description, I think again we can narrow this down to really two main possibilities. Her character is described as a sharp and free-spirited woman who is strong-willed, intelligent, and not easily intimidated. She is said to have a mysterious past. Now this description is kind of general, could apply to like any woman comic book character, I'm not gonna lie. But this definitely debunks a couple of rumors that were going around. I was kind of hoping she'd play a version of Gwen Stacy in this universe, unless they do like the Spider-Gwen thing and her having powers is her mysterious past. That doesn't seem likely because it definitely seems like they're describing someone that does have powers. Her being like the real Mary Jane also seems like that's thrown away, which I'm glad. That was such a stupid theory going around that she was going to be Mary Jane while we already have Michelle Jones in the MCU. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, there's really like three possibilities for her character. One that people are throwing around is FiresStar, who's on the left of this poster here from Spider-Man and his amazing friends. She is a character that was created for this show back in the 80s, actually, before she actually entered the comics. Now again, I feel like people forget that red hair actresses don't have to only play characters with red hair, but this would make a lot of sense. She is now a character that is deeply tied to being a mutant and kind of the X-Men in the comics a little bit. She's not a part of the team really, but she does have those mutant genes. That's how she has her powers. Obviously, her being Jean Grey is still on the board as well, because obviously we know the X-Men are coming into the MCU. It seemed like that would be after Secret Wars, but maybe they're going to somehow slowly introduce them in Spider-Man 4. It does take place probably in between Doomsday and Secret Wars, so that could be the explanation for this. Some interviewer tried to like trick her into talking about her role in Spider-Man 4, alluding that she was going to be playing Jean Grey, and her answer is kind of suspicious. Like the way she's talking about it makes it seem like, yeah, obviously she's not allowed to say it, but she was talking about how she's read the character before in the comics. So like, I don't know, maybe she's just an X-Men fan, or she was just preparing for the role.
If the internet is to be believed, you are already Jean Grey in X-Men.
Awesome rumor.
Do you know I mean, I assume know that character.
Yeah, I know the character, yeah.
It's a good character.
It's a great character, so it was cool to read.
Does the idea, if something like that or something similar to that, I mean, that's a commitment also. Like you sign on to be Jean Grey in X-Men, you're on and off the next 10 years of your life, you're doing that.
Exactly.
Is that a consideration? Is that something that's intriguing, exciting for you at this juncture in your career?
Yeah, I think that's super exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Let me know what you think of that clip. It seems a little bit suspicious to me. Like, yeah, it definitely seems like someone trying to just not say, yeah, I'm playing Jean Grey. And of course, it doesn't seem like Sadie Sink would be the obvious person to play Black Cat, but based on that description of being like free-spirited, strong-willed, not easily intimidated, and a mysterious past, it could obviously apply to this character too. But as I said, this is a very general description, so it is kind of hard to narrow it down to who exactly she'll be playing still. Before I get to this next one, that might be the craziest of them all so far about the main villain of the movie, make sure to drop a like on the video and let me know your predictions for these first two I went over in the comments so far. So like I said, this next one is about the main villain of the movie. They're looking for a female, 30s to 50s, any ethnicity, a powerful and imposing figure, seeking an actress with strong and commanding screen presence and depth. Now, I just realized reading this and thinking about it, we've had 10 Spider-Man movies, counting all the live action ones and the 2 Spider-Verse films, and yet there has never been a woman main villain in any of them. And in fact, I'm pretty sure the woman version of Dr. Octopus and Into the Spider-Verse is the only woman villain we've seen in any Spider-Man film so far. One of the main names I see people throwing around is Silver Sable. She's like this mercenary that is just absolutely ruthless in her pursuit of pretty much anybody that she views as doing things wrong. She definitely fits the bill of being like that super intense and imposing personality. You definitely would need a strong actress to play this character, and she's also a really great fighter. Like the hand-to-hand combat between Spider-Man and her could be insane, especially since we have the director of Shang-Chi working on this movie. I would really appreciate if she was the main villain of this movie, because it's someone that outside of like the Spider-Man PS4 video game, I feel like a lot of the general public that only watches the movie wouldn't even know she exists, and that's always cool to get a brand new villain in a Spider-Man movie instead of one of these that we've already seen a couple times. Another name I see people throwing around is the Spider Queen. I think her powers would kind of lend her to be a really interesting villain, because she kind of has the powers to like take control of people and turn them into pretty much her servants, doing whatever she wants. Even in the comics, briefly, Spider-Man gets put under her control because of his spider powers. She has the ability to just take him over, and there's a lot of really cool things that happen where like she is really testing the morals and the will of Spider-Man by being like, hey, if you want to defeat me, you're gonna have to kill off all these innocent people that I'm now controlling. And I feel like we really haven't dived into those like moral dilemmas and problems in this new Spider-Man trilogy. If you want to like grow up this version of Spider-Man now that he's like an adult Spider-Man off on his own, I think this would honestly be a perfect way to do it and still make it feel within range for the character and still like that Marvel Disney-ified safe. There's a way to balance that tone. I think we are seeing that with Daredevil Born Again. They're not afraid to get a little bit more mature in the MCU nowadays. There's actually a lot of other possibilities too. I think there's a very high, honestly like a 40% chance that it's not one of those other newer villains that we haven't seen before. And since Spider-Man really doesn't have a lot of notable woman villains, I think there's a chance that we see a gender flipped either Dr. Connors, aka the Lizard, maybe we see like an Olivia Octavius in live action, or a female version of Norman Osborn. Obviously, they changed the name. Now, obviously, this would make a certain group of people on the internet very vocally angry, but I think this would honestly be a cool way to do it if you're going to have one of these villains, because we've seen a Dr. Connors before, we've seen Doc Ock, and we've seen Green Goblin before in these movies, and it's going to be really hard to replace, especially like Alfred Molina or Willem Dafoe's performances as these characters. So why not try to replicate that and just do something completely different? If this is going to be the villains, I'd still prefer it to be Silver Sable or the Spider Queen, but I would not be mad at this. Now, the movie's going to start filming in a couple weeks here in April, so hopefully we'll get some official casting announcements for at least who the actors are going to be if we don't know the characters yet. But like I said, let me know all your predictions in the comments below, and click the playlist above me to hear all the latest leaks for Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars, Spider-Man 4 Beyond the Spider-Verse, and more.